We have to wait on him,
Oh,
waiting on him or walking with him?
Well, walking with him. He showed up about 1:15 when I sat right in.
Okay.
I remember.
Well, we had trouble last week with the pool, we closed a couple days.
$200 a square foot. Right. And my house is, I can't see building my house. 5 bedrooms, 5 living. I'm on two houses with a hospital.
Thank you, Lynn. Oh, okay. Are you on Harrison?
Harrison, yeah, I'm the second house south of the
Oh, okay, okay.
But, no, it's, I'll be there. I'll go to nursing home or over
Oh,
there.
sure, yeah, right.
There's no reason to leave now.
Basically, what I got.
If you'd all rise. The February 20th Common Council meeting will come to order. I want to welcome all of our guests, especially the small crowd over here on the right. Welcome. We'll start with the invocation by Diane Quantz. Thank you.
Father, tonight as we deliberate on choices to keep our citizens safe, to provide for economic growth, and to just deal with growing pains in our city, we feel fortunate to have that problem. But we ask, Lord, that you guide us and direct us in the best way to provide those services for all, to be fair and equitable, and to do what needs to be done to continue to encourage people to want to come here to live, work, and play. So give us wisdom as we deliberate tonight. Give us respect as we listen to one another, and help us come up with good solutions. Amen.
Thank you, Diane. Now the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. First item is the February 5th minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes for February 5th, 2024. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Josh,
Anyone-
did you make that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that, Lynn.
You're fine.
Again, I want to welcome everybody here this evening to tonight's council meeting. We're going to move into oral and written communication. It looks like, Lynn, the first one is a cable franchise fee with Comcast. Any comments there, or?
No, I don't have any comments. It was for the last quarter of last year, and it's down a couple $1,000, so.
Any
It is
questions
what it is.
from the council? Second item is the January fund report. Lynn, any comments there?
No, I don't have any comments unless someone has a question.
Any questions? None? Okay, thank you. The third item is a levy increase presentation that we'd like to have this evening. Before I ask the chief to come up, I'd like to share a few comments here. Under current Indiana code, a fire territory may petition the Department of Local Government Finance for an increase in the maximum permissible property tax levy based on the change in population within the territory. For budget year 2025, the petition must be submitted to the DLGF no later than March 31st of this year. The Warsaw Common Council may elect to limit the increase in rate or levy each year through the annual budget process. Chief Mayo and I believe the Common Council, as well as residents within the Warsaw-Wayne Fire Territory, should know and understand the following. Number one, what a petition for an increase in the property tax levy is and what it isn't. Number two, what the estimated change in tax liability will be for property owners not at the tax cap. Number 3, what Chief Mayo and I believe are the specific needs for the territory moving forward. And then number 4, a petition, only if approved by the Common Council, must be submitted to the DLGF by March 31st of this year. Chief Mayo and a representative from Baker Tilly, Paige is here, welcome Paige, will attempt to address these items with a brief presentation this evening. There is no action required tonight. This is only for informational purposes. If there is a desire by the council to act, we will propose a formal petition for council consideration on March 4th. A first reading of the proposed petition could be presented and approved at that meeting. Only if approved on first reading would it be given a second reading on March 18th. If approved at this meeting, and again, only if approved, the petition would be submitted to the DLGF before the March 31st deadline. Chief Mayo, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, appreciate that. Again, there's a presentation from Paige from Baker Tilly to go over the exact financial nuts and bolts, and then my presentation is more of a PowerPoint to go over what the levy potentially could be spent on. So, Paige, I'll leave it up to you. I can either run the PowerPoint or...
Thanks, Chief. Welcome, Paige. Thank you, Paige.
Thank you. Paige Sansone with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. Yes, so we did an impact analysis of filing this levy appeal, and as the mayor stated, this is basically your ability to petition the state of Indiana, the Department of Local Government Finance, to permanently increase your fire territory operating levy. This is a new appeal. It was passed by the General Assembly in 2022. There's been a few fire territories that have already filed this appeal in the state, so it is relatively new. So basically what this appeal does is it looks at your change in population over a 10-year period. So, and that changes, obviously. For this particular appeal, DLGF has us look at the change from 2013 to 2022. We looked at it last year, and you were qualified, but you were only qualified for about $600,000. This year, moving the dates just 1 year, you are now qualified for about 1.1 million, and I will get to that in a minute and go through that calculation. So what the statute says is look at about 4 different steps. First, look at what is that percentage increase in population over that 10-year period. Then you need to determine, is that percentage increase above 6%? You would not qualify if your population growth is less than 6%. So in fact, it was above 6%. It allows you to appeal for a rate increase that's equal to your actual growth minus the 6%, but you cannot exceed 15%. And again, I will go through your specific calculation in a minute. The final step of the calculation is to look at, have you ever filed for this appeal in the past? If the answer is yes, we have to deduct that amount. So for instance, if you would approve a rate increase this year of, let's say, 6%, 6 cents, next year if you qualify, we would have to deduct that off to whatever you qualify next year. So it does take a look back, and it takes a 10-year look back. So again, to qualify for the appeal, you have to have a 10-year change in population that's greater than 6%, and the appeal amount cannot exceed a 15% increase in your levy. So now I'm going to move on to the next page, number 2. This is where we go into specifically your calculation. So we look at the city of Warsaw and the unincorporated area of Wayne Township. In 2013, the population for both of those areas was 23,226. It increased to 26,000, a little over 26,000. So that's actually a 12% increase. 12% is greater than 6%, obviously, so yes, you do qualify. The amount that you qualify for, again, is the difference between the 12% and the 6%. So it's about 5.98%. I rounded that 12%. It's 11.98% minus the 6%. So you qualify for a rate increase of 5.98%. And then we compare it to the maximum of 15%. Obviously, you don't qualify for that. You qualify for the lesser of the 5.98% and the 15%. So what you're looking at here is you are currently qualified for a tax rate increase of 5.98 cents or 5.98% per $100 of assessed value. Move on to the next page. How do we determine then what that levy looks like? Well, we can just base it on what we know today. So today we know that your 2024 net assessed value is $1,861,267,505. So if I apply that 5.98 rate increase, I get a levy, a property tax levy of $1,113,038. So I will say that, this report is based on the current net assessed value. You've obviously had net assessed value growth over the last few years. Should the net assessed value come in higher, that's going to drop that, that's going to increase the levy amount that you get, but it'll drop the rate impact down. So again, we're just going to flatline that net assessed value for the purposes of this report. So that 3.9% that we have up there on the slide right now, what that means is that is the maximum amount a taxpayer would see an increase to their tax bill if they're not currently at the tax caps, and that's primarily in the Wayne Township unincorporated area. I will show you examples. So let's move on to page number 4. So here again, this is very important. This would affect 4 different taxing districts, so it really depends on where your property is located. If your property is located within the city limits, you're going to all be impacted the same. So if you are not currently hitting the tax caps, if your property is not currently hitting the tax caps, you could see a maximum increase of 2.4% on your tax bill. That's the total annual increase. If your property is located in unincorporated Wayne Township, the maximum you could see is a 3.9% increase to your tax bill. So you just look at your current tax bill, increase it by either 2.4% or 3.9%, depending on where your property is located. So next page, now we're going to get into very specific examples. I have the 4 taxing districts shown across the top there. I'm just going to pick one Warsaw taxing district and one Wayne Township taxing district. There's only one in Wayne Township. So the first grouping that I have is the residential homesteads. So those are capped at 1% of your gross assessed value. So if you look, a $75,000 residential homestead located in Warsaw Plain Taxing District 017 would see an increase to the tax bill of $12. That's $1 a month. That's the whole annual increase. If we move to, let's just say, a $200,000 home value under Warsaw Plain 017, that taxing district, that's a $0 increase because the home value of a $200,000 home value is already hitting the tax caps. So there would be no increase to that home value. Wherever you see zeros, that means that that property is already at the tax caps and would not see an increase based on this levy appeal. Let's move on to Wayne Township. Wayne Township, there are very few properties hitting the tax caps there. In fact, you'd have to have a property over $1.5 million to be hitting the tax caps in Wayne Township unincorporated. So if we look again, the $75,000 home value, same increase, $12. And that's, again, $1 a month. Let's look at a $200,000 home value, $59, which works out to be about $5 a month. So you can see these are pretty small increases, relatively speaking. We can jump up to a $300,000 home value, which is $98 for the whole year, which works out to about $8 a month. We can drop down to the next section, which would be farmland and other residential. So when I say other residential, it's like the residential rental type of properties, apartments and things of that nature. Those types of properties are all at the tax caps for Warsaw, the city of Warsaw. If those properties are located within Warsaw, no tax increase. But in Wayne Township, you're looking at that 3.9% increase. So if we just pick a $1 million value of that, either ag or other residential, you're looking at a $598 increase, which is about $50 a month. So that's that 3.9% increase. Moving down to the last grouping of properties, that's commercial and all other properties. None of those properties in any of these taxing districts are hitting the tax cap, so they would all likely see either 2.4% increase if they're located in Warsaw, or a 3.9% increase if they're located in Wayne Township. And you can see the increases are all the same no matter where they're located. So like a $500,000 value property, $299 increase, almost $300, and that's $25 a month. So I've got a lot of different examples on that page, but again, I think the easiest way to put this is the percentage increases. So 3.9% on your tax bill if the property is located in Wayne Township unincorporated, and then a 2.9% increase if it's located in Warsaw. I will kind of reiterate what the mayor said before. This process is to approve the petition, and you can approve the full amount of the petition, and then when you get to the budget process, you may decide how much of that levy to take. So there is that ability to be able to have the flexibility to not take the whole levy during budget process. But this petition is merely just asking the state, you know, we qualify, can we get this maximum levy increase? Whether you decide to take it during the budget process is up to you at that point. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions specific to?
Page, the numbers that we're seeing, it's based on the maximum amount again. It would be the 1.1 on the levy increase. But the tax
Yes.
rate could be, during the budget cycle, be up to that amount or a lot less. It would be up to the
Absolutely.
council.
Yep,
Okay.
this is just you asking the state, please raise my maximum levy by this 1.1 million, but each budget process, you can decide, just similar to what you have been doing in the past. This council has decided not to go to the full levy amount for the fire territory the last few years. Same situation. This would just allow you to get it up to the max, so when you need it, you can take it at that point.
So Paige, when you said it was a lifetime increase, it would remain then at that, we could take it up to that levy at any point until we petitioned again to have it changed?
That is absolutely correct, yes. And I will remind you, too, that it can vary from year to year. As we saw last year, we did the calculation just to see if you were qualified, and you were, but you were only qualified for $600,000 at that time. This year, you're qualified for 1.1. Next year, it might be something different. So you've got a really good opportunity here to increase that maximum levy and have that flexibility during budget time to not go to that max if you don't need to.
Any other questions for Paige? And when I saw, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me, I had somebody call me, wanted me to ask a question, so I figured this would be my time to do it. So they were a little hot under the collar, just wanting an explanation, and I didn't have a great answer, so I thought you'd be the right person. They said their intelligence was insulted by the way the article was worded, saying that the levy hadn't been increased since 2008, I believe, right? Whenever this fire territory was formed. So they must be smarter than me because I hadn't thought about that. But, or about this question. So the net assessed value has increased. So therefore the rate overall, or the amount of income, in another way to put it, has increased since 2008 pretty significantly. And my assumption is it's circuit breaker taxes that is prohibiting some of the income. But his question was simply, because the assessed value has gone up significantly, even though the levy has not increased, there should still be more revenue. And he's asking why there's a shortfall.
Yeah, so that's definitely a misconception that's shared by a lot of taxpayers, I think. The growth in net assessed value does not cause you to get additional revenue unless you file for an appeal. That's it. So what's going to happen is, as your net assessed value goes up, your tax rate's going to go down because it takes a lower tax rate to get that maximum levy. Your maximum property tax levy is based on an annual statewide growth factor. every taxing unit in the state gets the same growth factor, no matter how quick your net assessed value is growing, how much your population is growing, how much development you have. So the fire territory has been receiving increases to its maximum levy by anywhere between, I'm going to say 3 to 5%. It varies. It's based on how well the economy is doing. But in the past, the council has not permitted the fire territory to get the full maximum levy. So it's been a little bit of growth, I think, every year, but not like you would see if they would have gotten the full maximum levy every year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
To my knowledge, Paige, help me out, when Mayor Wiggins worked with the council, the territory was created in 2008, 2009. I cannot remember ever going through a petition in all the years. It's just a rate of growth
Yes.
based on factors 3 to 5%. But never has there been a petition. And again, looking and working with the chief, he's been so patient, and he's working through a lot of things for me here early in the year. You know, we're talking budget stuff. As a council member, I'm always thinking it's, June when we start talking already, because we are at, Paige, correct me if I'm wrong, we are right now at the max levy.
Correct.
Our budget is right at it. And so that obviously was back to my comments. I just felt like, along with the chief, you needed to be aware of these facts and realities moving forward short term, not only this year and next year, but then just looking into the future, not too far. The chief's done a great job of just trying to help me see the realities that we're putting on these firefighters that are here tonight, and what that means for the residents and property owners in the territory. Paige, okay, am I
No, that's
good?
exactly right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
And
Oh,
I
thanks.
understand you're right too, then every year when our assessed value goes up, that would make whatever you presented here tonight, that rate go down.
It could. The rate
It could,
impact
yeah.
could go down. Yeah, I actually, hopefully this is worst case scenario because I didn't include any growth in your net assessed value, but you have had growth. I just can't predict it. So we just kept it flatlined for next year. But yes, the tax rate impact could potentially be lower than what I'm showing here today.
Any other questions?
I'm just listening and learning.
Okay, Paige, thank you very much. I'm hoping that you'll stick around.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Chief,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Paige. So that was part one. Part two, we're going to get into a little bit more of the details. I think hopefully that'll answer some of the other questions. Why the levy increase? You've heard the financial aspect of it. That was the introduction from Paige. Next, we'll get into a brief discussion on where we're at with our current capabilities and discuss the increases that we're trying to shoot for. So let me start by saying the past job the council and other administrations have done for the territory have been really good. We have done what we've needed to do. It's an efficient fire department. You can tell by the interest sitting in the room that they obviously care about the organization. Phenomenal job. I mean, just Sunday, structure fire right down the street. Again, phenomenal job by all of them that were there. We discussed not having a levy increase in the past, so I won't beat that dead horse. Something else to consider here is we're talking about an operational budget increase. We also have the equipment replacement fund, which is part of the territory's budget. So when somebody would say, hey, didn't you just finance a new ladder truck because the other one's 20 years old? The answer is yes. That money comes out of the equipment replacement fund, which is not a discussion here at all. It doesn't get a rate increase. It is flat. So the money that comes into that every year is what it is, and we have to work with that on a yearly basis. This is the operational fund. This is the one that we actually can have some input on. We talked about the population increase in that study that was done from, a 10-year increase. What might also be interesting is the run volume that has increased. And I just went back 4 years, and it's gone from 2,783 runs in 2018 to 2022's numbers, which was 3,590. So roughly about a 28% increase in call volume in just 4 years. So lest you think that the population and the growth and the busyness of the territory, and I say territory, not just the city, but the territory as a whole, hasn't gone up. It really has. It's about a 28% jump. Of that too, and I don't know if anybody ever watches the territory board meetings because they're awesome and they're so exciting, but we have about a 30% overlap in call volume. And so what I mean by that is as you're on one call, another one comes in. And Mayor Jeff was sitting in my office last week just shooting the breeze, and it happened to him within 2 minutes, back-to-back runs. The structure fire we had on Sunday, there was a medical call that came in the middle of that structure fire. Thankfully, we had people come back off duty to man one of the trucks that was able to take that call. So, capabilities within our department, and you can see it on the screen right there. We have 4 daytime personnel, but that's Monday through Friday. And that's myself, the assistant chief, EMS chief, and the fire marshal, who, by the way, we're replacing very soon. Joe Fretz did a phenomenal job. That's my plug for Joe. 3 shifts consisting of 12 personnel, which staff 3 engines and 1 battalion chief car every day. That 12 personnel really is a minimum of 10 people on duty every day. Keep in mind when I say 12 people are authorized for the shifts, vacations, trainings, sick time, bereavement, you name it, it's rare that we have 12 people on duty. So when you see those numbers, we go down to 10 almost every day. It's a given. Sometimes we go below that. What I would consider some of our deficiencies are things that we need to address, which is the whole reason for the levy increase discussion we're having. Headquarters station, Station 2 right there by Kroger. I call it 3 priority apparatus, but only 1 can respond on a daily basis. And this will get into some of the NFPA standard that I put on your desk there before the meeting when we talk about staffing. There's 3 frontline apparatus that run at that station. There's the heavy rescue, the ladder truck, and the engine. But because we typically have 3 people there on a given shift, we can only take 1 truck. We can't put 1 person in each truck and roll them all out the door. We have to respond as a company for crew integrity, safety, just a million other reasons. Again, I'm not going to read this entire sheet to you because I put it there so you guys could take a look. And there are also daytime staff positions that we have been authorized that we've never been able to fund, one of them being a training chief. It's really one of those jobs we have to have because somebody needs to adjust training as a 24/7. Again, think about all the retirements and replacements we've had from last year to this year. Training's more important now more than ever. So positions that we have that actually haven't been funded. The Main Street Firehouse, right over here by the courthouse. I put there tanker response. It has an engine, it has a tactical rescue truck, which is not staffed, and then the fire engine itself. Typically, we only have 3 people there. To get the tanker out the door, that means somebody has to jump off the engine and take the tanker. We have places still within inside the city limits that do not have hydrants in them. So a tanker is very beneficial and necessary to have, as well as we send that out to mutual aid departments around the territory to assist them. That means we've gone down to 2 people on the fire engine. Again, we'll get into the study here in just a second. And then the territory provides specialty response for things in the county such as dive rescue, hazardous materials. We go on technical rescue, which is anything from a trench, confined space, rope rescue, tower, you name it. We are the specialty response within the county, and that takes a lot of training, a lot of resources, a lot of manpower to do that. The NFPA 1710 handout that I just gave you, this is the standard that the NFPA likes to hold career fire departments to. It does mention in there at the top where you see it's career-based, and it talks about anything from suppression to EMS to special operations, which we do all 3 of those. On the back, what I like to highlight is the fact that we go down to an engine or a ladder crew. It says a minimum of 4 on duty every day. I'm shooting for 3 on duty every day. You know, we're trying to just be diligent and responsible with finances in the city, but 3 is a minimum we'd like to stay within 2. It talks about an alarm deployment, and right underneath there you see low, medium, and high hazards. That residential structure we had on Sunday is considered a low hazard only because it's a small residence. It still takes 15 firefighters to get there and get the jobs done. And you think, that's a lot of people. Well, it is, but there's a lot of jobs that have to be done right off the rip when somebody gets there. Rescue, fire attack, hitting a water source, command, ventilation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Thank goodness for our mutual aid partners that came and helped us on an early Sunday morning. We were very fortunate that we had such a good turnout. Usually Monday through Friday during the week, that turnout looks a little bit different because our volunteer neighbors all have jobs. You know, Sunday morning, we're very blessed that most people were home and were able to respond, and we had a great turnout. So that's the 1710 handout I like to address. The spending. So here it is, the short and sweet of it. 6 firefighter EMTs, $110,000 per member, and you say, man, that's a lot of salary. That's not just salary, obviously. That's anything from their turnout gear, their training, their salaries, their retirement that the city and the individual contribute to, workman's comp, you name it, it's all in there. That's 6, that gives us 2 per shift. And you say, why 2? What's magic about 2? That gives me 1 person to put at the station uptown, which helps us with the tanker response. That gives me another person to put at headquarters, so now I can get 2 priority trucks out the door each day if everybody's there. And that's a big fat if, but that's a if everybody's on duty, I can roll 2 trucks at one time. That's huge. So $660,000 for those 6 individuals. Training chief, $120,000. Again, that's all the components that go into his salary and benefits. Inspector's position, $110,000. CARES, everybody knows what the CARES program is. What everybody probably remembers is those are grant-funded positions. I think it's, you know, Mayor Tallmer, when he started the program and where we're at tonight, Chief Fancel's in the audience, it's something we can't do without. It's something that mental health's never gonna go away. We're gonna have to absorb those people into the fire department, and those are grant funded, so we need to put that on the radar to make sure that we can keep them there and keep them gainfully employed. So just in personnel costs alone, we're a little over $1 million. When we go to other funding, so what besides personnel, chief? Okay, training expenses, that $100,000. Technical rescue training, again, we've had lots of retirements, people walking out the door. We have to get everybody trained to a technical standard so that we can respond safely. Part-time firefighter backfills and such, that's the $25,000 to send people to training so that we can put those bodies back on the truck so we're not running short. Firefighter physicals, and I put a little asterisk right there, and the mayor's probably gonna cringe because I say it's gonna save the city money. That's $45,000, that's roughly about $1,000 per firefighter to go get a NFPA certified physical. And you say, what is that? Chest x-rays, blood draws. There's all types of different physical components that go into there, cancer screenings. What I mean by saving the city money is one thing that we catch inside of a firefighter, right now the 2 biggest killers for firefighters is gonna be some type of a heart issue or cancer. We can detect those, we can get ahead of those. We're gonna save the city a lot of money by getting out ahead of some of those injuries and illnesses and doing more preventative maintenance instead of reactive maintenance. So those are the firefighter physicals. Roughly that right there, about $170,000, now we're up to $1.2 million. Okay, what we're talking about is 1.1 with the maximum levy. Again, if we took all the money, we went to the sky, $1.1 million. Being fiscally responsible, and I think it's just prudent to try and chew the elephant one bite at a time. I think the best course of action would be, and these are my highest priorities and things I think that we can accomplish in the short term, would be put 2 firefighters on shift, the CARES coordinator and assistant, our training funding, our firefighter backfill, and our firefighter physicals. This puts us down the road to the path that we need to be on to get the ball rolling in the right direction. $1.1 million is a huge sticker shock, and I realize what that looks like to the tax money that we just heard from Paige. This figure, I think, gets us going down that right track. They're all priorities, and I kind of like to use the analogy of going to the dentist and you've got 3 things wrong in your mouth. Let's pick the biggest things, chew on them at first, and then address the other ones as we can on down the road. So, pending anybody's questions?
I want to thank you, Chief, for all the work that you've put in addressing needs, current realities, short-term, and then longer-term, trying to work through what do you see the territory looking like and how do we service the fire territory. And then also sitting with me and working through what are the conservative, responsible steps that could be taken to start to address these needs. And I think when we first went through it, your guidance, you were very quickly going over the max levy. But again, let's try to focus on what can be done. not everybody's going to feel, completely happy about it. And we got gentlemen in here that run the trouble rather than run away from it. But I think your efforts and then this approach, you go back one strain, is very responsible for us to consider as we look at the proposed petition for a tax levy increase. And then also during the budget cycle, the chief and I can come to you in June with these high priorities, and we won't have to worry about, we're already at the max levy, we can't do anything. None of this can come into play, or far less. Okay, as Paige said, there will be some increases, so we don't want to, mislead anybody, but it would be a lot better, we believe, for the council to consider raising that levy, so this could be considered as we move into summer and fall for the 2025 budget year. Did I say that right? Is that okay? What we
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm just thrilled to death that we're even having this conversation to start with. I realize the $1.1 million is the ceiling that we can go up to. My recommendation, of course, would be to approve that amount, and stick with me, approve that amount, but then we can work backwards. And again, that's why I put my biggest priorities up here. These to me are like, gotta have the root canal, gotta have the root canal. These are my root canals. The other ones are some cavities and some other things. I'm sorry, so I'm using my dental analogies, but the other things that we can address and chip away at over time. But we can't have any of that ability if we don't address the levy right now this year and go forward and take a look at it.
Chief Mayo, are you able to give us like a breakdown for 2023, like types of calls, the CARES runs, the?
We can, and we do that every month at the territory board
Okay.
meeting. Of course, I can tell you, and Chris can check me on this, about 70-75% EMS. Yeah, 80% EMS, which is the medical calls, and that ranges from everything. That's a heart attack to a twisted ankle to a lift assist, kind of lift assist. The other 20% are going to be your fires, your gas calls, fire alarms. So without going into detail, yes, I could provide month by month. 2023 is a little odd as well because we switched data resource management systems. We switched from emergency reporting to first due. So that's why when I gave you the figures of the last 4 years, that was only up to 2022 because the two systems, extrapolating the information is a little difficult nowadays. So yeah, bar none, what you're going to see probably going back to 2018, which is what those figures were, it's going to be roughly about the same.
Okay.
Yeah, and the run volume just keeps going up. They keep overlapping more and more, so.
So if I were to go back to the minutes from the fire.
Absolutely,
church,
yeah, exactly. They're in
Okay.
board pack or whatever you want to see for every month. Yeah, I know we talked about them, Mike, you look at them every month as well too, so.
Right.
Fair assessment to say that that's pretty accurate?
Yeah.
I know we're not in budget session right now, but this is just out of curiosity. Are any of the physicals offset by our city insurance, or do you go to a certain place in order to receive this kind of physical, or what's the difference between that physical and what we would get for a wellness physical?
Luckily enough, I have the one person who's done the most research on it on here. And I know the physicals that we currently have are what I would call the doctor's visits, garden variety. We get our vitals taken, vision test, spirometer, which is the breathing, basically lung capacity test. Is that it? That's it. No blood draws, no x-rays, a physical exam, but a very cursory physical exam, meaning like, you good. So what I would say the difference is going to be is, and the HR director sitting in here, he can tell me if our insurance even covers back any of that for our physicals that we do. I don't think they do. So again, when I'm saying the city's going to save money by spending a little money,
Right.
any type of cancer that's caused, and you got to remember, firefighters are about 50-60% more susceptible to cancers than any other professional on the planet almost. Cancer screenings, they're huge. X-rays, huge. Blood draws, all that stuff. We don't currently get any of that. So that's where I think the bread and butter is truly going to be, because you catch one in one firefighter's career, and you've probably saved your money.
Aren't the physicals part of the pension process too, when you hire? or is
Only
it
the
two?
initial. So when you get, and you're right, Lynn, when you get hired on 1977 pension, you go downtown Indianapolis, you get a very solid workup. That's the only time you ever get it. So that's the one time in your career when you're coming on board, make sure you're clear, and then after that, it's whatever your agency recommends. So, good question.
Chief, you mentioned over the course of the last 4 years, there's been a 28% increase in call volume.
Yes.
That probably doesn't tell our audience very much. Can you give us a number of calls that maybe you experienced just in 2023?
Well, again, 2023 is rough. So 2018, we had 2,783 calls. 2022, we did 3,590.
3,590.
And again, 30% of those, of the 3,590 are overlapping.
Any other questions?
That's a lot of calls.
It's gone up a lot. That's only, 28% in 4 years.
That's, my math is, was never a math whiz, but 3,590, that's almost 10 a day. 365 days a year, that's 10 a day.
I can tell you right now, we have days where we blow 10 out of the water. I would say we average between 5 and 6 a day, but again, the heavy days make up for it by far. And it's seasonal. You know this from territory stuff, that, the winter months it slows down a smidge, but in the summer months it just explodes because people are outside. And of course, we have the water nearby as well. So the call volume is, it's predictable, but yeah, it just gets busier and busier.
Chief, this is both for you and Paige. I'm looking at the sheet you prepared, and it's excellent. I appreciate that. Those numbers are for the maximum levy, aren't they? So what you're proposing is only about 60%. So actually, the numbers that Paige has given us, it's going to be about 60% of that. Is that correct?
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly 60%. So that's impressive. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the board?
A lot to think about.
I want to thank Paige, and I want to thank you, Chief, for giving this presentation. Again, the chief and I just felt like it was very, very important. It's a timing issue because of the March 31 deadline. And then the realities of the situation, according to the chief and I looking at it, we just felt like you needed this information. No action is needed. I want to thank Mike for his leadership on the fire territory, individual discussions to hopefully get you ready for tonight. What I would like from you is, if not tonight, individually, you think through, communicate with the chief if you have more questions, communicate with me. And I'd really like, Jack is not here tonight, but I bet he's listening. Hi, Jack. And maybe you as a council could come to us, because again, this deadline with a proposal, all right, for a petition to raise the max levy. Again, that's if you're just feeling individually and collectively like that needs to happen. And again, the reason why is because of that deadline. Once we get into June and August, if we don't take action on this, which you have the right to do, not take action, again, we've never done this before, it will have an impact on Chief Mayo and I, our ability to present the 2025 budget to you.
So the levy has never been raised since it was set in 2009?
Paige, yeah, good. Good.
It's increased by very small percentages.
Okay.
But it has been very much limited because the fire territory hasn't been able to go to the maximum levy, just through the budget adoption process.
Yeah.
So it's just had very small increases throughout the years.
Diane, we've never entertained a petition to raise the max levy. We've never done it
I know
before.
that for a fact. You have not petitioned for a permanent increase. It's only been the small levy growths that all other taxing units get in the state.
And because of sound choices, like the chief said, and just doing the best we possibly can to provide this service, but also control costs, we have been under the max levy. You go back a few years, and I can't remember, Chief, but you showed me, we've been doing pretty well. But the red flag for me and the chief, again, feel free to speak, is we are at the max this year. We are at the line. We're not under it by $500,000. We are it's like in the hundreds of dollars. Lynn, right? We're right at the max.
Yeah, we have been
Okay.
for the last couple of years.
Okay, so she would even say, we're right there for the last couple. And so, again, we both felt like we needed to present this to you, to the residents of the community in the territory, just so everybody knows what we're looking at.
The other thing I think that we just need to point out is that with the increase in housing, not only within the city limits, but within the fire territory comes more people. And with more people becomes more accidents, more medical calls, more fires, more things that they have to respond to. And I think we all were quite aware as we're approving these new developments that there's going to come a time when we need to increase services so that we continue to enjoy the same level of service that our citizens have come to expect. So you can't just keep adding kids to the family and not increase your budget without some of them starting to go without, and that's kind of the situation I think that we're at.
We have some very, very trained, again, they run the trouble, we run away from it, trained individuals here that are providing emergency services on a variety of fronts. I would like these trained individuals to have the resources, the training, others, okay, that we could provide for them as backup and support to continue to provide these high-quality and much-needed emergency services to the territory. Whether it's a fire on Sunday morning, a car wreck, a heart attack, they're there. I saw them running into my house a few years ago when I had a house fire. I was running out, Kevin gave me a hug, and hi, Kevin, and that kind of thing, and then he ran in along with the rest of them. And do we want that? I would make that, yes, I do. I want them to be able to have the ability to provide these very important and needed services to the entire territory.
I think we also owe it to you guys and to your families that we do everything we can, that you can be in the best health possible.
Yep.
And that you can feel confident of that, but also that your loved ones can, that you're in the best condition you possibly can be when you're risking your lives for us.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have one, just to clarify the timeline. If we pass this levy, this would not apply to the tax rate till '25, is that correct?
Yes.
When would the money actually be available to you to perhaps spend that 565?
25's budget.
When, I'm sorry?
June of 25.
June of 25, that's what I was trying to figure out, thank you.
Okay, I want to thank Paige, I want to thank you, Chief, I want to thank the gentleman in the audience for going through that presentation. Looking forward to more questions and some direction from the council as we move closer to March 4th. Scott, we good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for all your work. We don't have any unfinished business, but we do have new business. The first item is ordinance 2024-0202. It's a proposed amendment limiting the development of storage unit facilities within commercial districts. Justin, due to illness, is unable to be here, so I'll read his memo to you before we begin discussion and possible approval. Presented for your consideration is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance limiting the development of storage unit facilities within commercial districts. This change to the permitted uses table will define storage unit facilities separately from warehousing. Warehousing was intended to govern the practice of storage associated with commercial uses, However, it has been used to govern the development of storage facilities throughout the city due to a lack of more applicable definitions. There has been some concern with the conversion and development of storage units creating a potentially detrimental impact on community vitality in commercial zones. This proposed ordinance change comes with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. And if I remember right, Diane, that was back in August. We
It
gave a
was in August.
Favorable
and
recommendation.
Then if the minute meetings were not until, we didn't meet in September, so until October. But it was approved unanimously by the Plan Commission. And it was an issue that had come before us that we'd been studying, that we'd gone back and forth with our city planner as to what we thought ought to be in that ordinance before we finally agreed on what we thought ought to be recommended to you. So I guess what I'm telling you is that it was something that didn't just come before us and we quickly approved it. It was something that we studied for a period of time as different residents, as business owners, as people, raised the issue about what was possible. And as we looked at what the best and highest use of property in the city was, whether we wanted to use property in these areas in order to build that kind of, structure, or whether we needed to continue to encourage commercial growth within our city limits. So that's kind of how this all came about, because there was a lot of movement at that time of people wanting to buy up land in those areas and convert them to this kind of use. And so that's how this kind of all happened, to give you a little bit of a background as to how we got here.
You look at the tables and you'll see permitted use will now only be in industrial districts, no longer commercial. But do remember, if a petitioner feels like these types of units or development would work well in a commercial district, they could come before the BZA and they could present their case and seek approval through the Board of Zoning Appeals. So it isn't like it could never happen again. There may be unique situations where maybe storage units in this type of use would work well in commercial. But the Plan Commission, working with the Plan Department, like Diane said, just feels like permitted use moving forward should only be in industrial districts. Any questions?
No, but I'd like to move we accept the ordinance number 2024-0202.
Thanks, Jerry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second, a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it on first reading. Okay? Thank you.
And there's
So-
not really any hurry on this, so, we can leave it and
Right.
see if you get comments or other things between now and the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. The next item, ordinance 2024-0203, rules designating outdoor refreshment areas. Again, because of Justin's absence, I'll read his memo to the council. Today, I'm asking you to consider a piece of legislation that will help facilitate the collaboration between small businesses downtown. This ordinance, if adopted, benefits businesses that have invested in downtown by enhancing their liquor licenses to allow carry-out beverages. Today is an advertised public hearing for the first reading of this proposed ordinance. In July of 2023, the state passed legislation empowering Indiana communities to create designated outdoor refreshment areas, DORA. A municipality can now create up to 7 areas within its jurisdiction, allowing citizens to purchase alcohol at designated establishments and consume the beverage anywhere within the boundaries of the DORA. Since the passage of this legislation, city staff have been in discussions with Main Street Warsaw and other local leaders and stakeholders about the possibility of taking advantage of this program locally. After seeing several communities in the region embrace this opportunity, we felt it would be a disservice to our community members and downtown business owners to not bring legislation forward for your consideration. Today, we're asking you to consider proposed rules governing the creation of local DORAs and then consider the creation of a DORA in our own downtown. If both pieces of legislation are approved after the second reading, we will send documentation of that approval to the state for review. At this time, I'll ask legal, do you have any further comments connected to this first ordinance and maybe how it's connected to the second one? Scott?
So the first ordinance is going to establish the rules of what the DORA is going to allow to have happen. And more specifically, the second ordinance that is being proposed tonight would set the boundaries and the vendors that would be participating in the DORA. So the first ordinance would apply to anywhere that the city may choose to create a designated area or any vendors that would participate in the DORA. The second ordinance would be more specific to the intention to create a downtown DORA with specific businesses that are listed and specific areas that are listed for where the downtown DORA is going to be present.
Any questions for Scott or myself at this time?
Who decides who can be a vendor?
So they start out as someone who already has a liquor license. And if you already have a liquor license, then those businesses that have a liquor license are allowed to ask the city to be allowed to participate in their downtown or our downtown or the designated outdoor refreshment area if we choose to have one that's not the downtown DORA. But currently, the one for consideration tonight is for the downtown designated outdoor refreshment area. So those are generally the businesses that host a liquor license that are within the confines of the area that's designated for our downtown outdoor refreshment area. If we chose at a later date if this council thought it made sense to designate, you can designate up to 7 different areas. If they chose to designate a different spot in town, you could do that, and there would likely be different vendors that would participate in those other locations in town.
Right now, Mike, and this will come up in the other ordinance proposal, there are 10 businesses that are very interested in becoming a part of this DORA, and we'll see it here in a minute, but 10 that we know right now.
So if somebody, this is just a hypothetical question, if somebody has a restaurant and they can serve liquor, but they don't have a brick and mortar store in the DORA, could they conceivably have like a food truck that serves food and beer, and they could come into the DORA and do that and sell beer too?
So state legislature has created the ability for municipalities to pass designated outdoor refreshment areas that could include that opportunity. What's being presented to you all, and with a collaboration with Main Street Warsaw, is you're being asked tonight to consider the brick and mortar places that are located within the downtown DORA. Other places, for instance, as an example, Fort Wayne has a Three Rivers Festival and has an area, or maybe like a library commons, where they say, we want to allow a beverage truck to come to the Riverwalk area or the Library Commons area, and we will allow people to petition the Fort Wayne City Council to be included in a DORA to allow them to participate at the Riverwalk or at the Library Commons. That has not been presented to you all tonight. It could be something that you might consider at a later time if it made sense that there was some place that you as a city council or somebody requested that a different DORA be established that allowed beverage truck vendors to participate at. That could be one of our remaining 6 spots or areas that could be used. Or they could amend this ordinance in this area if you thought it was a good idea to have outdoor beverage trucks. But what's being presented to this council tonight was the idea that the original first request for a designated outdoor refreshment area would specifically be for the brick and mortar vendors that are located downtown, to give them the first opportunity to take, I would say, advantage of the state legislature's interest in creating these designated outdoor refreshment areas.
So what I hear you say is just what's in the door now, but there is built-in flexibility to this. Should we at some point want to amend it one way or another, we have that opportunity.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and if one of these downtown establishments then would want to set up a beer garden or a beer tent, they still have to go by all of the traditional rules and regulations from the state?
Well, so there are rules that allow, excise rules of where the beverage can be served from. What the DORA allows is the beverage will still be served from a licensed liquor establishment inside the vendor's building from a licensed bartender. It'll just allow that beverage, if it's in a proper cup, to be taken outside of the bar or restaurant that's participating that you all are approving. But if they wish to make a sale that's not inside their permanent brick and mortar restaurant, they're going to have to seek traditional different licensing that allows them to have a beer truck outside or a beer garden outside. They're going to have to seek a different type of license, a temporary license for that. This will just allow the businesses that are on this list, the 10 of them, to serve a drink that will be in a designated cup, and that cup will be allowed to walk out the door as long as that cup and that refreshment stays within the designated outdoor refreshment area.
I don't see anywhere in here, so I'm just asking for clarity's sake. There's no limitation on vendors. So for instance, if we established a DORA, the 10 that are interested, we could have 10, we could have 100. There is no limitation within the...
Well, you all get to decide. So part of what you're approving as the city council is you're approving these 10 that are listed on the ordinance as requesting to participate in it. I don't know what will make you decide that these 10 are worthy, or maybe one of them's not, or maybe 2 of them's not, or 3 of them's not, or some others might at someday be worthy. But part of the wisdom in requiring an ordinance to have someone ask to be part of it is you as a council, based upon the reputation of some of these businesses in town as you know it, you may choose to not let certain vendors participate in your DORA for whatever reason you might have. But you're being requested tonight to consider and allow each of the 10 that have been put on this ordinance to be allowed to participate.
Sure, I understand. So let me ask it in a little different way. So we have the 10 tonight. If there were more in the future that wanted to be a part of this, would they have to come and apply individually and we would approve them one at a time?
So it could happen a couple different ways. If they want to participate, we're going to pass the first ordinance, which is just going to set the rules for how a DORA works in the city of Warsaw. The second ordinance is going to specifically state these 10 vendors will be allowed to participate in this designated area. you could amend the second ordinance to add additional or to remove people if you thought that they became undeserving. You could add additional people if you wanted additional businesses to participate in this area. Or there's 6 other opportunities to pass a different ordinance that describes different businesses in different areas, up to. So it could be piecemealed as to, we allow it downtown, we allow it some other areas of town if that became something that you all thought was wise.
Okay, thanks.
Section 8, Josh, in the second ordinance, Section H addresses some of that. We'll see that in just a little bit.
In our first ordinance, I think another thing that's really important is number J. And that is that a person may not consume an alcoholic beverage within a DORA that was purchased outside of the DORA, which would keep people from bringing their own alcohol into this area and not having a licensed bartender, therefore overseeing consumption and what's going on. So while in some people's minds this is going to open up the downtown to, crazy behavior, it actually is a protection because the people that, have to purchase it here, they have to consume it here, and they'll be under the eye of someone that's licensed to evaluate their state of intoxication. And it was one of the things, and you'll see on the second one, but that swayed my church council because we have issues with people bringing their own beverages and then coming over onto our property. So it's just a safeguard that you don't think about, like the other half of this ordinance is monitoring what goes on downtown and keeping it a safe place for people to be and to enjoy.
Good point, Diane.
Under G, times of operation, I'm just curious, I assume that'd be 7 days a week during normal times of operation for those establishments?
So whatever their liquor permit allows, there's a myriad of excise rules, right? And, some you have to quit serving at 3 a.m. or whatever the rule is, and people have to clear out by 3:30 or whatever their liquor license currently allows. The proposed ordinance would allow the door to remain open at legal hours. So they changes on Sundays, and it's different for some places on Sundays than maybe others, depending upon the amount of food and different things that they offer. But it would limit it to what the state law says they're currently allowed to serve as a bar if it was a traditional bar or restaurant.
I've asked Rob to come and speak briefly. Rob, you want to come up and, on behalf of businesses in the downtown or this potential DORA, as well as just the realities of it? Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I think you all know me. I'm the head of Main Street Warsaw and also the president and CEO of the Kosciuszko Chamber of Commerce. And we had our Main Street board meeting today, and the board unanimously, I can say it, but we all agreed. How about that? We all agreed on a resolution to support the DORA. And I have it written here if you want me to read it. It takes a little bit, but I'll just go ahead. So, whereas Main Street Warsaw's vision is to help create a thriving and vibrant environment for our downtown, and whereas DORAs have been proven to promote community engagement, support local business, and foster a sense of place in downtown across this country, and whereas DORAs create opportunities for resident visitors to gather, socialize, and enjoy the unique amenities of our downtown, what we have to offer in an outdoor setting, and whereas establishing a DORA in Main Street Warsaw's downtown district will encourage foot traffic, increase patronage to our local restaurants, bars, and shops, and contribute to the economic growth and sustainability of our community. And whereas Main Street Warsaw is committed to promoting responsible alcohol consumption and ensuring the safety and well-being of our patrons within the designated area through collaboration with local law enforcement and implementation of the appropriate regulations, Now therefore let it be resolved that the Board of Directors of Main Street Warsaw wholeheartedly endorses the establishment of the DORA in our downtown district, and be it further resolved that Main Street Warsaw pledges its full support and collaboration with local authorities, businesses, and community stakeholders to implement and manage the DORA in a manner that maximizes its benefits while mitigating any potential negative impacts. And be it finally resolved that Main Street Warsaw will actively advocate for the adoption of the DORA, recognizing its potential to invigorate our downtown, strengthen our community bonds, and promote our city as a vibrant destination for residents and visitors alike. So that was approved today by the Main Street Warsaw. There's a few things I just want to say. I think when you look at this, I think there's really a couple of different aspects of a DORA. One is the social aspect, right? It's people gathering. We have a great downtown. We have some great spaces that we've created. We activated the alleyway. We've invested in the courthouse plaza. There's just a really great nature. We also have awesome events in the downtown. And so one of the events that is just excellent that we have down here is the Fat and Skinny Tire Festival. And every year we have a beer tent. And when you have a beer tent, you have to have a pen for adults to drink inside that beer tent. And I call that beer jail. And so I've seen it, and I think everybody who's been engaged in that has seen adults who bring their kids to an event, and the adults will go into the beer jail, and the kids will wonder. And so what I want to create is a more family atmosphere. So when we do have events, if somebody wants a beer, that they can be with their kids, and they don't have to be separated. So we do also believe, I've talked to many communities across Ohio and Michigan that have seen significant economic improvement in their downtown. So I've heard from some that have seen up to $100,000 of additional revenues come in just to the restaurants because it's more vibrant. It's not because they're selling more alcohol necessarily, but people are coming in and seeing the additional foot traffic. And when you see more foot traffic, it creates more people wanting to be there.
Rob, I want to thank you for your efforts. If I remember right, this goes way back into the fall. And you have been, as I was introduced to this stuff before, having the privilege to serve as mayor, you have been right there from the very beginning, and I want to thank you for that. Just trying to work through it. Let's do it the right way.
Yes. So I'll tell you, Mayor, that even before that, I actually petitioned Senator Brown, who was the lead for the state, who was pushing the DORA because she had seen the benefits at other states. So I've been ahead of it before that. But yeah, it's a passion of mine that I think we can do this the right way. I think we can enhance the vibrancy of our downtown, and we can continue to foster a sense of community and belonging and gathering, and that's just what I want to bring into our community. A couple of things that weren't mentioned, but when you go outside, you have to have a designated cup, and I would say on that cup we'd have a QR code that anybody could click on it, and it would tell the map of where they're going to be. So just the little details, but we have a whole marketing list of things that we've already developed that are ready to go whenever it's approved. So, any other questions? Do you want to hear from?
It is a public hearing, so we can ask
Perfect.
anybody that is here that would like to speak can come forward. We know Rob, and you come up and state your name, and then, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Rob, thanks again. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Greg Demopoulos, co-founder of KCV and the director of Fat and Skinny Tire Fest. And so just want to say thank you first and foremost for the support of the Bike Festival. This year will be the 19th edition. And so we truly appreciate the opportunity to put the event on, but that's one of those things that we hear from folks is the beer jail. So I think this certainly will help. And the nice thing with the Bike Festival is there's so much barricade around the course anyways, so we tend to just expand the beer jail a little bit. But we do think that it will add to our ability to put on a great event and bring people in for years to come. So appreciate the support.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Anybody else like to speak? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, or maybe entertaining a motion on first read for ordinance 2024-0203?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-0203.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by Diane, a second by Jurgen. Any further comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 1 abstain. Thank you. Next item, ordinance related to this, as Scott has pointed out, ordinance 2024-0204, the establishment of a DORA. Submitted for your consideration is a proposed downtown designated outdoor refreshment area. The border for the proposed downtown DORA will begin at the intersection of Lake and Main Street, running east along the Main Street, south along the west side of Indiana Street, turning west along the north section of Jefferson Street, turning north on Columbia Street, heading east on Center Street, turning north on Lake Street, and terminating at the intersection of Lake and Main Street. I won't read that again. There is Exhibit B to help you. The operation of the downtown DORA has been proposed to mirror the ordinance approved by the Village of Winona Lake by allowing the DORA to function throughout the year with hours of operation deferring to state code. By allowing the state to govern the hours of operation, we can avoid confusion when it comes to enforcement practices. Within the attached ordinance is a list of vendors for consideration. This vendor list is only a draft for first reading of this ordinance. Refinements will need to be made to the participant list prior to the final reading and adoption of this ordinance. Letters from churches have been submitted showing no objections from churches within 200 feet of the proposed DORA as required by state code. Scott, this second one, any comments here again to add to what I've just read that Justin provided?
There's just going to be, amongst the minor changes is, it says on paragraph 2, on February 20th, this was going to be passed. Well, I don't anticipate this being passed in 2 readings tonight. I think we're going to amend that date to say March the 4th, if it makes it through tonight.
Okay.
And it'll say March the 4th, the Common Council passed this ordinance, because we anticipate the second reading will occur at the next council meeting, which would be March the 4th. So, and as Justin set forth, this is the list that has so far asked to be included. I know there may be some additional vendors that will wish to be included before March 4th, second reading, to also be included in this.
The current ones that are interested, it's in section 8. I think that was Mike's question earlier.
And so when this is passed, then where does it go next and how long does that take? And
So if you all approve allowing this DORA, then the specific area will go down to the state, and it'll go through the State Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. And the State Alcohol and Tobacco Commission will look at it. There is a bunch of additional information that will be sent to the State Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, which will include the liquor permit numbers for each of the establishments that are being included as vendors. There will also be information about the owners of those establishments, and I believe there's even information about who's currently licensed to tend bar in those establishments. I believe all those permit numbers are included with the state application that goes to the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. How quickly that done, I don't know. They'll get it done when they get it done. They don't answer to me, I can tell you that. But other municipalities have done it, I think had fairly quick responses. but we're not cutting edge. Many other communities have already done this, but also many other communities are having similar meetings about this time as it becomes something that's more readily available and more sought after by other communities. I know here locally, Winona Lake, they've already passed their DORA provisions recently. Fort Wayne has previously passed one. I believe South Bend may have passed one as well. There's some of the places that I've seen. And then really early last year even, I think, got worked on by like Shelbyville, Indiana. But many places are doing this, which might slow it down a little bit at the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission because of more people that they have to filter through. But that would be the next step. From here, if these ordinances get passed, it'll go down, and then there'll be an approval, which will allow the licenses for these 10 designated areas to allow them to do things like have the alcohol in the designated cups, allow it to leave the premise where they are not currently allowed to do that, allow possibly other alcohol in those cups to enter their premises if they choose to do that, which they wouldn't previously be allowed to do. So it just amends their license somewhat, and that's what they'd get from the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission.
Could I ask you to, for the sake of the people that are going to hear this in the news, when I first learned about this, I was skeptical. I didn't know if it was a good idea or not. I didn't know if it was proper to have the city promoting alcohol consumption on the streets of the city until I learned that it's already permitted. And this might even tighten up some of the laws that are existing. Would you mind explaining to the public how these laws work currently and how this is going to change that and affect?
So currently in the state of Indiana, if you're over the age of 21, you are allowed to consume alcohol. That includes being allowed to consume alcohol where you find yourself to be, with certain exceptions, right? But in general, say using the city of Warsaw as an example, you can bring a cooler and sit out on the sidewalk and drink beer if you want. That's allowed. It's not against the law to do that. It's against the law to be publicly intoxicated if you are a danger to yourself or others, or if you're harassing other people. But otherwise, you're allowed to consume alcohol in public. And sometimes people do. The DORA is going to create it where that's no longer going to be allowed within the confines of the DORA. And I think part of the reason for that is they want to protect the market for those people who are participating, and they want to have some control over the people who are in the designated area. As was brought up before, I think one of the advantages possibly from this is if you want to purchase alcohol and drink it within the DORA, you're going to still be evaluated by a licensed bartender who has all the same issues that they had when they were serving inside the restaurant to decide whether or not they want to serve you or not. If I just have my cooler of beer out on the sidewalk, nobody's deciding probably but me how many I have. So I think that's possibly an advantage to it, but that's one thing that the DORA is going to create is there's going to be not allowed to be outside alcohol within the downtown area. It's all going to have to come from one of these establishments, and it's going to have to be in a designated cup. And there's rules even about what can be in the designated cup. Can't be more than 12 ounces of beer, can't be more than 10 ounces of wine, can't be more than this much liquor with only 2 ounces of liquor in it of a mixed drink. And you can purchase 2 at a time, those kind of things. So there's quite a few checks, I think, on this. And I guess in talking with Rob and the people, the vendors that have spoken with me about it, they want it to work for this community, and they want it to be a positive for this community. And if not, you can repeal this ordinance if it's not. So you have that ability as well to modify the area, modify who participates, not have it at all. So that is what power you all control as far as your designated outdoor refreshment areas.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple thoughts. I'll end with my questions. The first are going to be statements, I guess. I would like to see I think there's going to need to be education around this for the general public. Specifically around, this doesn't allow you to get in your car, even within the DORA, right, and drive from one part of it to the other just because you're still within the DORA. You can't operate a vehicle, which seems like common sense, but I would have to imagine there are some people that may not think that way. So I think there needs to be some education around that, and also specifically around, it looks like there's going to be some signage. So that's I think a good step in the right direction. It sounds like the cup's going to have a QR code on it as well, with a map on your phone that you can see if you're within the DORA. The second thing I would say, I guess, a couple of general other thoughts are maybe making a determination on if there needs to be an increased law enforcement. Odds are it's going to be a pretty smooth sailing, assuming this gets passed, because I'm more likely to overserve myself than have a bartender overserve me, right? So technically speaking, that's probably going to limit that. However, especially early on, I think that makes some sense. The third thing, and this is where my questions come into play. So, is the signage for the DORA and also the cups that will need to be purchased as a designated cup, are those going to be taxpayer funded?
Yeah, so I think when you heard me say that Main Street's all in for this,
Mhm.
that we have the plan to purchase the cups and make them available for the downtown merchants.
Okay. And the signage?
And the signage.
And,
yeah.
okay. All right.
And we'd work with the city to make sure that the signs are right, and, but I've seen examples, from Kalamazoo to Worcester to, several different communities, Canton, over in Ohio, and they all do them differently. So it's really on what you guys would like to see, and we can show all kinds of different examples.
The ordinance does, in section E, this second one here does give some guidelines on signage that you can see there. And again, Rob and his organization and other stakeholders are going to make sure that they follow this as we move forward. The other thing I wanted to tell you that I've already received it, I don't know if you have, but the police department has already established a baseline for this area, incident reports.
Okay.
And they are going to watch, I think that was a suggestion made by you a week ago. We're already working on that for you so we can watch it as we move through the summer.
Sure.
And continue to evaluate it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Rob. One other thing I forgot, sorry guys, I'm hogging the mic. To go back to my first point about some education around, not getting in your car and driving down the road, right? So I think even going as far as to try to promote ride sharing. I don't know if that's something you guys had thought about at Main Street Warsaw or not, but maybe, I don't know, on the cup, you can just say, don't forget to use Uber or something. I don't know, something cheesy and stupid like that. But the point is, it still promotes the fact that we need to be responsible.
Don't drive drunk, I think would be the most.
Right.
Another bugaboo of mine is making sure, like in an event, we have enough trash containers.
Absolutely.
Out,
Yes.
because
100%.
the decorative ones we have out fill up pretty quickly.
Yep.
Rob, if people can walk outside from establishment to establishment and you happen to have a business that doesn't serve alcohol, can somebody with an open container walk into your store?
Each store would have the right to determine whether or not they walk into the store.
Because some people might not say.
Absolutely.
No beverages, period.
No beverages,
coffee,
period.
water, I don't want.
I don't care. That's
stuff
right.
being spilled on my merchandise.
I don't want, yeah. So if that's your stance, that you have every right to do that,
Okay.
and then, no beverages allowed, doesn't matter if you're in the door or not.
Okay, no food, no drink, you see that?
That's right.
Certain places.
Sure, you don't want, somebody has nice merchandise, they don't want something spilled on it, makes sense. There are some people, though, that will see it's an advantage to come in,
Yeah.
if somebody's having a drink, they may want them to come in.
Yeah.
Some people tend to spend more, maybe.
So yeah, exactly. Will the business owners put that in their front door, right? In the
Yes,
front window that
yep.
says Dora friendly or something, right?
Something like that,
Okay,
yep,
yeah.
yep. And there'll be a lot of communication, once this is approved, to our Main Street members, and Main Street organization and chamber in general, so. I see a video or two in our future.
So one observation that was made was if people are able to socialize outside, say on a nice summer day, then there might be more people come to the downtown area to do that. But if somebody is inside an establishment where they have a waiter or a waitress asking them when they finish their first drink if they'd like a second drink, they finish their second drink, would they like a third drink? If they finish the third drink, would they like a fourth drink? As maybe sometimes happens in an establishment, that's less likely to occur for that person who's sitting outside in the sunshine at a table or on a bench or on wherever. They may say, I've had one, and I'm going to sit in the sun and enjoy that with my friends for a while. Or I'm going to have two, but I'm not running back and forth as much because there's not going to be wait staff coming and waiting on people outside quite the same as there would be if they were nestled up to a table inside the establishment. But it's likely, what we're finding from these other communities that have it, that it's likely to increase the number of people who choose to come to the area because they have that flexibility to go from place to place or go outside or see their friends or bump into people they maybe haven't seen in a while. So that's what some of the observations have been made so far from these places that are having already designated an outdoor refreshment area.
Any other questions? Public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, it is a public hearing, so if you have any comments or questions, you can come up and ask, just so we can hear on the speaker, yeah.
Quickly, all right, I was, my name is Brett Helbig, I'm with KCV. I was just curious if you could share with us the list of vendors as it sits at this point.
Who are the list of them?
Who is currently on the list? Fred, I have it, and I can give it to you also. Fred, you good?
Yeah, I didn't know there were 10 businesses downtown that serve alcohol.
You need to get out more.
We'll keep our eyes on you, Fred. Would anybody like to come and speak? Again, it's a public hearing, so if you'd like to speak for or against, questions, comments, would anybody like to come forward? Okay, thank you. Anything else from the council? I appreciate all the questions and again, all the work individually and collectively working up to this point. You guys have been so patient and have worked through all of this. Are there any other comments or questions? I'd like to entertain a motion on first read on that ordinance, but anything? And again, this second ordinance would establish a downtown DORA with the borders. I'm not going to read it again, but you got your map. And again, part of that would be on that QR, the whole 9 yards. But this would actually establish that if approved on first reading.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance to establish the DORA as laid out in ordinance 2024-0204.
Motion made by Mike, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Jurgen. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain?
Yeah.
Okay. 5 in favor, and Jerry abstained. Carries on first reading. Thank you. 8:35, we're doing great. Any other matters? Any other matters may come before the council? Anyone?
Can I just give a shout out to Union Tool? I read recently that they are celebrating 80 years of business in our community, fourth generation, family owned, and I think that's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
It is.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance this evening. Have a good and safe evening. Thank you.
I wonder what Jay Hare wanted. Oh, he didn't leave any message.